Another frigid winter in California. I'm sweating in a t-shirt. That's about the only good thing about living here. Oh, and this issue. For years and years, well, when I first got the internet back in the 90s, we have a lot of experience with wells, pumps, digging holes and bringing water out of the ground, producing water. We have properties, the house, the business, they all have, how would you put it? We have property with wells drilled in the ground in production, easily 15 wells. Different counties, different depths, this sort of thing. So we have a lot of experience with getting water out of the ground. And then I've always been on the scene when we would drill a new well, repair an old one, and I always found it very, very interesting how these guys drill wells and what's the word? I can't think of it. Anyhow, digging water out of the ground. And so when the internet comes along, I can't remember what started it, but I think someone was going to Africa digging wells for people so they had clean water. And they're showing how they do it. How they dig a well by hand. Because when you have, here they use drills, there's pneumatic pressure, there's hydraulic pressure. There's all these different ways to drill 1,500 feet in the ground. But I always found it real interesting. Especially I'd come out and watch these guys do it all day. But I picked up some knowledge over these years of being interested in this. Of what if you had to dig a well? What if you had to, and here's an advantage we have. Where I'm standing right now, in a wet year, in the summer, we'll have the water table's at about 50, 55 feet. When we had a 2-year drought, the water table got down to 85, 90 feet. Luckily, I got one pump that goes to 125. And that was after a pretty good drought, like a 3-year cycle for California. So we can access water here inside of 100 feet. You can go online on YouTube. And if I think of it, I'll find some old channels I used to watch that I could put down below. Where people will dig, call it digging, but it may not necessarily be the best definition. But you can dig a well. Now, if you live in a place where water's 500, 600 feet, maybe you can't do this. If you got to deal with the granite infrastructure busting through rocks, okay, yeah. This doesn't work in every situation. Because I've had people argue this, well, that wouldn't keep my pool. Dude, I'm not talking about keeping your pool filled. I'm talking about if you need drinking water. You can bring water out of the ground, given the right scenario. Okay? But let's say you had to go 65 feet into the ground. How are you going to do it? How big a hole? What size of hole do you need to create to do that? How are you going to bring it out of the ground? You have power? You have a pump? I mean, these are readily available. You can buy some off Amazon right now. I have a solar powered pump that I need to finish. That'll do the same thing. You could purchase that right now. You get very small ones that are mobile. You can take it with you, whatever the case is. And then there's a formula for how big a pump you need for the depth you're dealing with and all that. But if you had to dig a hole, maybe you live somewhere where it's 10 feet or whatever. Okay, hey, you can do that by get a shovel out, go to town. But let's see here, if I'm trying to get inside of 100 feet, I could use water pressure to dig a hole. I could create some sort of mechanical drill that could dig that hole. That would take some doing. Matter of fact, there was a guy on Craigslist had one for sale, and I wanted to buy it, but I didn't. But there's another system that they use, these old tribesmen in Africa use, and it's akin to a system they call the, now it escapes me, tool, it'll come to me in a minute. Gosh, I do this every time I think about it. Something tool. I'll think of it. But they use a couple of tools, a couple of items, and they can dig a couple hundred feet. Okay, get down to the water table. And there's science behind it. There's things you have to do. There's plenty of information about that on YouTube. But they have something they use to, they basically get a hole started. And they, if the bottom of this hole, let's say it's a 4-inch hole, 4-inch wide, they go down and they break up that soil. They pour some water in there and turn it to mud, the right consistency. And then they send a baler down there that is a flap on the bottom or off the side that fills up that mud, now falls into that baler, and they lift it out. And let's say you did that, you just now removed 4 inches of material. You just got 4 inches deeper. Now someone hears that and goes, it's going to take you all day to dig that hole. No, it's going to take you weeks. It could possibly take you weeks to dig that hole. But if you had nothing else, what are you going to do? But people argue this because everyone's still in their state that everything's, power's on and all that. I'll put a video. I'll link a video. I'll find one and put it below this. Cable tool. That's the system I'm talking about. The old cable. The first well we ever dropped here was with a cable tool. It took the guy 3 days. And they're just dropping this thing down, and Jim's material, dirt, up into this pipe, and they pull it out, empty it, and do it again. And so they're just going inches. In that case, they're going feet at a time. You might be able to go inches, but if you dug a hole and roughed up the soil at the bottom, added water to it, now it becomes a slurry of mud that falls into this baler you send down there, and you pull it out, you're digging a hole. Takes labor, some good rope. But there's plenty of people, this is how they do it in places, Africa and all this kind of stuff, where they got to go down. And then what you end up with is, okay, I got water down there, how do I get it out? I got to get something to pump it out. Yeah, you're right. You can buy that today. You can actually purchase something like that today. But if you don't, you're sending a pipe down there with something on the bottom so it can collect so much water and you bring it back up. Just like in the old images, they showed the people at the, they're at the well bringing up water. That may be all you have. But if you could bring up a bucket of water a couple times a day, you don't have water. No, you're not going to fill your pool or wash your Ferrari, but you don't have water. You could clean it, purify it, drink it, do whatever you do. Plant something, whatever the case is. But I think it'd be knowledgeable for someone who, if you're one of those people like some of us that like to think of things going south, it would be worth your while to at least see how some people have gotten water out of the ground. And then some of the tools that they created while they still had power, some of the tools they created that made it much easier. When you can't call someone to come out and drill your well. I could get on the phone right now and call a guy, hey, I want a well dug and let's get it going. He'll say, okay, basic, simple well, that's $25,000 and it'll be there in 4 weeks. That's with everything going. Trump is president, everything's great, and that's still got to wait 4 weeks. So yeah, if you could get a little information in your brain, if this inspires you to do something great, but if you get a little information in your brain, and then you might say, if I ever had to, I would build something like this. Well, build it today while you have all the parts and tools. Or at least write it down. Hey, if I had to, do something like this, here's how I would do it. And to me, the baler was the most important part. I've got one. I'll edit at the end of this video. I'll show you this baler. It's the second one I've created. And it works okay, but I still need to, I need to change it. It's big. It's a big one. You want to do this by hand. But anyhow, knowledge is, important, especially in times of need. You got to have a hack. But if you knew that, hey, man, if we got some bodies together, I got this rope or chain and I got this thing over here. Let's do this. Let's start doing this thing. By the end of the week, you could have water. And there are people that have done this in their backyard in cities. Now, is that legal? Probably not. California, you can't do anything. But that part's up to you. I'm just giving you I'm sharing you some knowledge that I think is really important. It's just like right now, if I was pushed off this property, I'd take my baler. It's the first thing I'm putting in the truck, because who knows where I'm going. It's just one of those things. But hopefully you'll find this useful. I'll try and find a couple of videos. I'll link them down below. And at the end of this, I'll show you the second baler I've made, which works so-so. And I've just tested it. I've just tested it in the ground to see how it works. So anyone wants to come at me, oh, this guy's digging a well. No, I'm not, because in California, it's all illegal and crazy and, you know, whatever. But hopefully you'll find this useful. If you're ever in a situation where there's no water, no one coming to get water for you, and you got nothing to use and bring it out of the ground and got to dig your own hole, this might be useful for you. And you can get the stuff today and sit on it if you have to. Love you. God bless. When it goes down, this pushes back, mud comes in, the weight of it will shut this, so put force against this, and it brings out about 65% of the stuff. But this would be, this is a 4-inch pipe. I had to weld a hinge here to attach this rubber flap. Like I said, once you get enough, if you get 6-8 inches of stuff above, you know, to here, this shuts down real easy. And it goes up against this piece right here. I don't know if I can show it to you. No, maybe not. But it closes off against this. And because it's not, if you're pulling out straight water, just rush out the sides here. But since it's heavy, you want a thick, almost like pudding, this will bring it out. So your mix is important.